Hi, this is Jennifer Lewis coming to you from the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, with today's Tuesday technology tip on passwords. So we've all been hearing a lot about scams and what's going on in terms of phishing. One of the best ways to protect your information and the privacy therein is by having a good password. Well, what's a good password has changed. As I was sharing with my boss today, 8 characters or 9 characters just isn't going to do it. It really needs to be around 12 characters or longer, and some of the sites I looked at recommended 16 characters. And instead of actually using a word, they recommended using a passphrase. Why should these passwords be longer? Well, the reality is the shorter the password is, the easier to crack. What's called brute force is a technique where hackers go in and they just start guessing words or have a program or algorithm that sits there and guesses until it finds the words that you're using. They really work on words through the dictionary, so you really don't want to be having a password that's just a word like cookie 123 or 1cookie23. Typically, what the articles indicated was that even words in other languages are susceptible to hacking, especially because it's basically understood that if the instructions for a password say one capital letter and one symbol, what people will tend to do is put the capital letter at the beginning of the word and the symbol at the end. So the algorithm already has that as part of its methodology, and so that makes it easier for it to crack. So you kind of have to think about making it much harder than that. Well, for me, for instance, a password is very difficult to come up with that isn't a word. So what I've been doing is using a password generator. This is the one, freepasswordgenerator.com, that I think I like the most. Let's see if we can get this guy to pop up and just show you what exactly it's doing. And of course, it's popped up in the wrong window. Okay, so the first thing is to set the password length. And so I'm going to put it at 16 characters. I'm going to include symbols, include some numbers, include lowercase, include uppercase. Okay, and also I would recommend checking this generate on the client side. I don't want anyone knowing what my password is. I don't need to send it back to the computer. And then the next thing I'm going to do is sit here and hit select. Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong thing. It's actually generate. So when you hit generate, there's the new password. And what it's trying to give you right here is how to remember it. Rose life plus nice bat owl. So basically one word to symbolize each of the things that you have up there, so that this will actually make sense to you. Of course, even remembering this is going to be difficult for me, and I'll be honest with you, I am not going to remember this. It would take a lot of effort, and you sure don't want to write down a text file because then you've undermined your whole process. So what exactly are you going to do? Well, what I would recommend is actually using a secure password manager. And there's 2 of them I would recommend. They both have 2-factor authentication. So basically they confirm your identity using a combination of factors, so not everybody can access it. But LastPass is the one I've been using, and basically you set up your information there and then you store all your passwords. It's actually a add-on to your toolbar, so it saves it directly into LastPass, or from there it automatically starts looking for when you're entering in passwords and saving those. So that's definitely what you would want to do to remember that complex password. But I wanted to also share with you a couple of things to remember, basically the 10 rules of using passwords. And this is one that I'm terrible about, so I'm really trying to, in light of all the things that are going on in the world, to remember to not use the same password. It's easy, obviously, but I should not be using the same password on multiple accounts, because then one account will leak all the accounts. So one of the examples they were using was that if a person was able to hack into the Gmail server and get your password from there, and that's the password you use everywhere, now they can open all your accounts across the internet, and that's definitely not a door that you want to open. Also, you need to remember to change your password every 10 weeks. Or at work, it will probably remind you to do something to that effect. In your personal life, it will not, so that's going to have to be something maybe that you put on your calendar so you remember. Again, 12 characters. number, letter, lowercase letter, and a special symbol. Do not use the names of pets, family, friends, anything that you could track with you. Don't use your postcodes or zip codes, house numbers, phone numbers. Anything that is related to you should not be in there. And don't use any dictionary words in your passwords, because that is exactly what the algorithm for the brute force attacks looks at: dictionary words in any language. Don't use two or more similar passwords, like I love Fresh Flowers Mac and I love Fresh Flowers Dropbox, to identify the different places that you're using the password, because that, again, will be very easy for them to figure out what you're trying to do. This is not going to take a genius to divine what exactly you're trying to do. The next password is obviously I love Fresh Flowers Gmail. Do not use something that is cloned, but you can't change. So don't use your fingerprint as a password. That is not going to work either. And don't let your web browsers, which they will often do, store your passwords, because those can be easily revealed. Do not log into important accounts while you're on free Wi-Fi spots, because then somebody could sit there and A, they could surf behind you and see what you're doing, or B, they could just go behind you with the program and find out what you're doing. Do not let sensitive information online go out unencrypted. So you should encrypt connections. So things you want to be looking for: HTTPS in the website address, SMTPS, and IPsec. You should not be transmitting things that contain personal identifiable information that is your own or someone else's without encryption. So that's definitely something you want to think about if you've got an Excel file that's just full of data about people and their birth dates, which we often have at schools. So that's definitely a risk. And the biggest thing I would say, in addition to the length of the password, is to double check the site that you enter your password into before you enter your password. Because as we discussed in the previous tip, phishing emails are sent out that are geared at letting you believe that you are corresponding or logging in with the company that you do business with. And then what they do is they log your keystrokes, and then they figure out exactly what you just typed, and now they've got your password. So again, be very careful with that, because that is probably the biggest thing with phishing. That's probably what got Barbara Corcoran from the Shark Tank, is something like that. It wasn't necessarily that she didn't understand it was a phishing email because of the nature of it. It's because she thought and trusted the person she thought it came from, probably her bank or something like that. And that's how she got scammed out of $380,000. So let's definitely not be Barbara Corcoran, and let's be a little bit safer than that. I've got some references on here. And if you have any questions, comments, or want a copy of the PowerPoint, you can email me at jennifer.lewis@usm.edu. Thanks again for joining me for today's Tuesday Tech Tip.